Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here. I've got another Master Duel video for you all. So today we're going to be covering yet another 60 card Ishizu deck. You can definitely tell I'm on a little bit of a kick with these, maybe slightly. No, but I'm really having a lot of fun with this new Ishizu support, like a lot more than I thought I was going to. These cards are actually pretty rad. I definitely underestimated the amount of just overall graveyard shenanigans that are around in Master Duel. Particularly, we have that Grassland Screener, which is not present in the TCG. And also just this window where we have Ishizus, but not tiers, but still some of the pote stuff like sprites. Has created for a very unique meta. I really didn't expect Ishizu stuff in general to have like so much of an impact, but I'm honestly glad that it has. And this is yet one of the many graveyard-based decks, yet another of the many graveyard-based decks that we can go ahead and take a look at with the Ishizus here. Adventure Phantom Knight. I've often said that I think this deck is very regularly slept on, and I think even as recently as the Sprite meta, that was probably the case by myself as well. It's certainly been a while since I came back to this deck, and even I hadn't come back to this deck yet since Fusion Destiny went to 2, which was actually a pretty huge upgrade for Ishizu Adventure Phantom, or just Adventure Phantom Knight in general. We are definitely running the Scythe package here, and with the ability to hard open Fusion Destiny that much more often, you can oftentimes just go into Dogma and then just straight up activate Fusion Destiny from your hand, and it's like, boom, you got a Scythe lock right then and there, which is pretty nice. So, this list is somewhat lifted a little bit. I took, let's say, inspiration from actually the 60-card Adventure Phantom Knight deck that got top at the most recent MCS. It's going to be MCS week number 6 here, and that was piloted by, let's see, who was using that? Gally W Yu-Gi-Oh! Galliwygo was piloting the Adventure Phantom Knight build there, with, of course, the Ishizus as well. This build is going to be slightly different. Looks like they actually were not on grass, which I thought was pretty interesting. When I was looking at their deck, I was like, wow, really 60 cards and not on grass? But I actually tested it without grass a little bit myself, and found that, yeah, it actually functions just fine. I decided to put in grass to see how good it was, but then never drew it, so I guess that does ultimately prove that the deck does not need grass to function. I can actually see how grass could potentially be a detriment if you mill too many of like your Destiny Heroes and stuff, but then again, we also have the Shufflers, or no, Kelbek isn't a shuffler, it's Keldo and Mudora. We always have the shufflers here. I actually originally had 2 of the Mudora in, but I decided to try Illegal Knight. Much like the Adventure, much like the Ishizu pile, I wanted to have another Adventure option in case we wanted to like bounce a couple of our opponent's cards instead of going for a Griffin, which can often be the case, but didn't really come up during testing, not during this bout of testing anyway. We are playing the mini BA package, so that way we can go into the Cherubni and then use these to go into Phantom Knight, Rusty Bardish, and then also bring back the Cherubni for additional plays. One thing that is definitely missing from this extra deck that I'm absolutely going to put in moving forward, and in fact I'm just going to do right now so I don't forget later, I want to try not just try an Malbranche. I think this deck actually needs an Malbranche, because we're actually going to see in a couple of these games here, I just straight up open with Ancient Cloak and not a lot else, but if you have Malbranche in your extra deck, Ancient Cloak by itself is actually just a full Scythe lock. What you do is you normal summon Phantom Knights of Ancient Cloak, send it for Malbranche, then you can banish the Ancient Cloak from your graveyard to actually add the Shade Brigandine from deck to hand. You can set and then activate Shade Brigandine, and then that will allow you to go into the Ver. I said Scythe Lock, it actually just lets you go into a Ver. I misspoke there. Oh, you know what? No, you need the Lake Spider for this too. So I think I'm just going to have to do some extra deck reworking overall. That's right. I forgot you need a Link Spider as well. 2 extra deck slots is a bit dicey. I could see myself dropping the White Woman Jump Scare, aka Underworld Goddess of the Closed World, because that definitely does not come up super often. I think that's pretty necessary. I don't know if it's like necessary, but like I said, there were a couple of games I really could have used that line. We ended up having plays anyway, but at the same time, it's like, could always have more options here. Although the same could be said for having the second Break Sword and the Underworld Goddess as well. To be fair, though, I never really found myself utilizing the second Break Sword, even like when I was playing 40-card Adventure Phantom Knight. It never really came up that often, so I could definitely see it being right to just not have it. Let's see, for a danger package, I'm trying to triple danger Nessie here as well, just to maybe make the other dangers a little bit more accessible and or have more ways to discard the Kelbek and Agido. I like the idea of being able to search up one of these, but I kind of just also at the same time just want to run more Jackalopes and Tsukinokos. That's another departure I could very easily see myself making from the list that got top here at the last MCS. Alright, let's see. I don't think there's really anything else. Oh, another difference from the list. I noticed the MCS list was running Dasher, but I definitely prefer Malicious. Like, Malicious is... It just offers so many additional bodies with a Denier that I just think it's super good. Also, like, it's definitely a good target to mill with the Ishizus as well. So, yeah, I just figured that Malicious would be better to try over Dasher there. But I think those are going to be all the major differences and all the key points I wanted to discuss when talking about the list itself. I mean, for the most part, it really is just like the same Adventure Phantom Knight deck. We're just up to 60 by including the Ishizu package, some Dangers, some Grass, you know, obviously those, just a few other cards as well. But for the most part, functions the same as it did before and is still an extremely powerful deck. Still overall relatively slept on. I think it's been around tier 3 power level, like even since the Water Enchantress and Fusion Destiny limits, but it's just that nobody's been playing it. But we're going to be playing it, and let's take a look at some games here after we break down the list. Alright, so we're playing 3 Maxx, 1 Graff Malbranche of the Burning Abyss, 1 Seer Malbranche of the Burning Abyss, 3 the Phantom Knights of Ancient Cloak, 3 the Phantom Knights of Silent Boot, 1 the Phantom Knights of Ragged Gloves, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 1 Danger Jackalope, 2 Danger Tsukinoko, 1 Phantom Knights of I can never remember this one. Please scroll. Thank you. Stained Greaves, that's what it is. 3 the Phantom Knights of Torn Scales, 1 Destined Hero Denier, 1 Water Enchantress of the Temple, 2 Keldo the Sacred Protector, 1 Mudora the Sword Oracle, 2 Kelbek the Ancient Vanguard, 2 Agido the Ancient Sentinel, 1 Artifact Scythe, 2 Destined Hero Malicious, 3 Danger Nessie, 1 Wandering Griffin Rider, 1 Illegal Knight, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Foolish Burial, 1 Reinforcement of the Army, 2 That Grass Looks Greener, 2 Fusion Destiny, 2 Rite of Armiseer, 1 Dracoback the Rideable Dragon, 1 Fateful Adventure, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Cross-Out Designator, 2 Forbidden Droplet, 1 Phantom Knight's Wing, 1 the Phantom Knights of Shade Brigandine, and then 3 Phantom Knights Fogblade. It's going to round out the main deck there. For the extra deck, we're on 1 Destiny Hero, Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, 1 Livier the Sea Dragon, 2 the Phantom Knights of Breaksword, 1 Divine Arsenal Zeus Sky Thunder, 1 Trubni Ebon Angel of the Burning Abyss, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Artifact Dagda, 1 Predaplant Vert Anaconda, 1 Dark the Dark Charmer Gloomy, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 the Phantom Knights of Rusty Bardish, 1 Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess, 1 Access Code Talker, and then finally 1 Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. It's going to round out the deck list. Let's go and take a look at some gameplay now. Alright, our first duel of this video is going to be against Salamangreat. It's definitely been a minute since I've played against this deck. This is another deck that might be like slightly being slept on. I think Salamangreat is stronger than a lot of people think it is right now, but I don't think it's particularly strong for what it's worth. But anyway, our opponent's going to take the first turn here. I should have thrown out Maxx during the draw phase, but I just wasn't being mindful of doing that here. Opponent is going to standby phase Salamangreat Circle. They're going to normal summon Foxy. I thought they were going to activate the effect, which is why I didn't chain Maxx to the summon. Again, I wasn't... I'll admit it, okay, I was listening to a podcast while I was playing these games. But in any case, yeah, I should have thrown out the Maxx either during the draw phase or again when the Foxy was summoned. I was waiting for the effect to activate and then I was going to chain Maxx, but the opponent just elected not to activate the effect here, going straight into the Banelinks. I will, however, be chaining Maxx to the activation of this Gazelle here. So we did miss out on one draw, potentially, but it's not really going to matter because our opponent's going to end up having an Ash Blossom for it anyway, so... It's alright that we misplayed because it didn't matter. No, even in these situations, you do want to still obviously make sure you're not misplaying, ideally, but... In this case, it just didn't happen to really matter that much, so... at this rate, I don't really have any more disruption left in my hand. Just gonna have to let our opponent make the rest of their Salamangreat board, which is most likely going to consist of the Link 2 and the Counter Trap, but probably not a whole lot else beyond that. To be fair, with my current hand, that's still going to be enough to stop me, though, because Rite of Armiseer is really just about all I have going for me right now. So, yeah, it's going to be a little bit annoying to try to deal with that. They actually end up going for quite a bit here. They go for a Durgus as well to get an extra draw 2 and then discard 1. Durgus, the, what is it, Timeless King? Durgus. Dugares. Oh my god. The Timeless. Oh, just the Timeless. Okay. Got it. Well, in any case, yeah, they get to draw 2, discard 1. That's fine. I don't really care, to be honest. It's actually even, like, good for me because the fact that they skip their next draw phase. It's not really that hard for me to be able to out their board and have enough disruption to keep them from doing anything. And then the fact they don't draw at that point is pretty good for me. So here we did actually get another kind of live target here of something anyway, of Agido the Ancient Sentinel. Which is pretty nice. I'm going to try to use that with Dangerous Tsukinoko, see if I can mill some cards. As expected, my opponent ended up, you know, negating the, what's it called? The Rite of Armistier with their counter trap, the Salamangreat Roar. Which, you know, like I said, was expected. So here I'm just going to set the Fogblade and the Called By, then activate Tsukinoko. We do actually manage to discard the Agido, but the opponent's got an Ash Blossom, which is going to prevent the mill 5 there. Normally this would be pretty backbreaking, but we did happen to just draw another level 3 monster. To be fair, we have a lot of those in the deck. But we got Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, which is really nice. It's going to allow us to go into Cherubni, and if we can just get to Cherubni, then we have plays. It's kind of like the end goal of not just this deck, but pretty much any Phantom Knight variant. Is just, you know, get to Cherubni, and then you will pretty much guarantee to have plays at that point. You can also use Cherubni to send Water Enchantress to go for right, but we obviously already activated Rite of Armistier this turn, so it's not really that great of a play here. I'm just going to go ahead and use the Bardish to set up the Ancient Cloak and Grave, and then the Shade Brigandine face down. I'm going to go for an access code here, even though it's not going to be enough for an OTK. It's still going to be enough to clean up the opponent's board, and I can actually make it with IP Masquerena, which means it won't be able to be destroyed by card effects either. So even if the opponent does end up having another out, they're going to just have a pretty hard time dealing with a 4,300 attack monster that can't be destroyed by effects. And of course, we still have the Called By and the Fogblade face down as well. The other thing this does actually, by sending the Silent Boots to the graveyard, I get to set up another Fogblade search from deck to hand. So we've got a lot of disruption. We can clear the opponent's board, and our opponent also does not get to draw a card because, again, they used Durgus to Timeless. So they've got 2 cards in hand, one of which is going to be, I believe, a Gazelle they searched off of the circle they activated. Oh no, they just, wow, that's weird. They made the Sunlight Wolf unaffected. Okay, yeah, that's fine. I think they thought they were going to get OTK'd there, but they actually weren't. They really should have searched a monster there. That might have actually been enough to get them out of this. It's been a minute since I've played Salamangreat, so I don't actually remember. And to be fair, I also don't know what all my opponent has in their hand and deck at this moment either, so they'll summon the Gazelle. I'm just going to go ahead and activate the Fogblade now, just to make sure they're not sending anything. They do have, yeah, the Falco in their graveyard that they could potentially use, but I've got a Called By for that, so I'm just going to use that here. And then if their last card in their hand is another Extender, I still have another Fogblade, which should, in theory, be enough to handle anything, really, my opponent can throw at me here. Which is not going to be much. They're just going to throw me the win, actually, is all they're going to be throwing me, as they then end up conceding that duel. So yeah, that was a nice little game where, you know, even though we didn't have like a crazy opening because we had to play through our opponent's stuff, we were still able to just lock down the board enough to make sure that we were able to secure the win. So there's that duel. Let's go and take a look at the next one here. So for this game, we're going to be up against a straight up stun deck. Just Inspector Borders, Floodgates. They're using Earth Barrier statues, which I actually think is just the wrong choice because of Adamancipator and the Ishizu stuff right now. There's, like, yeah, there's, I mean, not a lot of decks to be fair, but like Adamancipator, you can definitely still make plays under the Earth Barrier statue. It limits you still, but you still have plays. I think the Fire one would probably be the way to go. Fire or Water. I don't think there's a lot of water right now, right? Like, Greaves isn't doing anything. Any case. This is one of those hands where I really could have used, like, the little setup I mentioned in the extra deck. Well, were it not for the fact that I had Wandering Griffin Rider, I would have needed the Salamangreat, Almirage, and the Link Spider in the extra deck here. But in this case, because we had the 2 materials, we can just go into DPE. So I will actually be using the Malicious from my hand. That might look a little weird because it's like, oh, you have another Malicious in your graveyard, but I really value being able to summon the Malicious on the next turn to potentially be used as a material to climb into like access code or something like that. So definitely just going to go ahead and use the one that's in my hand to make the DPE here. Also adding the Torn Scales just to have it set up for next turn potentially, and then I'll set the Cross out before passing over to my opponent here. So they just immediately set 5 and then go into the Earth Barrier statue, so it's like, alright, I'm pretty sure I know what's up. Here I'm going to use DPE's effect, but I actually misclicked / misplayed. For whatever reason, I decided to choose the Vert Anaconda, but I should just pop DP itself, because DP, of course, is going to get destroyed during the end phase by Fusion Destiny anyway, so... yeah, like I said, just a bit of a misplay there. Poe's going to flip up Macrocosmos right away, which fortunately does not stop this, or banish rather the stuff that's already in our graveyard, so... we still have a decent amount of plays here. I'm going to start by bringing back DP, of course, during the standby phase. Then, during my turn, I'm going to start by bringing back Malicious and then the Denier. I'm basically doing this just to see if I can bait out any kind of a response from my opponent before I commit to either Torn Scales or Rite of Armistier. I will have to use one or the other, because if I activate one, then, well, because of Rite of Armistier, you can't activate this card if you've used the effect of a normal summoned monster during the same turn. So I'm going to have to use either Torn Scales or Rite. I just wanted to see what kind of floodgates I was potentially dealing with aside from Macrocosmos before I committed to one or the other here. But Poe didn't reveal anything, so I'll just go ahead and activate the Rite of Armistier here in this situation. Poe's got a Solemn Judgment to negate that. Which at first I was kind of like, ah, bummer, there goes the Rite. But then I was like, wait, they just put themselves within lethal of what I currently have on board. And it's funny, I thought to myself, it's a stun deck, but there's no way they're actually running Mirror Force, right? It turns out my opponent actually was on Mirror Force, they just didn't have it set here. So I get to just smack my opponent for lethal here. Ah, so good. I think they only have like one Mirror Force in their deck to be totally fair, but it's like, in all fairness, even stun decks like this are actually the ones most likely to run Mirror Force, but they still don't run it enough of the time that you can just get away with attacking. And, I don't know, I thought something like Torrential might have been even more likely than Mirror Force, because you tend to see that a little bit more often. In general, I just thought, like, you know, there's more of a chance that I get punished for flipping, or for summoning a monster, and then they just flip up like a Floodgate or a Torrential or something. So I'll just try to go for lethal, and it turned out to actually work here. It's funny, I think my opponent actually could have had Goes in a Rivalry, because I'd only had Dark Warriors on the field, and that's how I won. Although if that was the case, I don't see why you would then Solemn Judgment the Rite of Armistier. I kind of don't see why you Solemn Judgment Rite. I would really need to know what their other 3 back rows are. It's kind of fascinating to think about, like, what combination it could have been, where Solemn Judgment on Rite of Armistier, when you had no battle protection, was the right play there. If it was the right play, but who knows. In any case, we still have a couple of games to take a look at. Let's just go ahead and dive straight into the next one here. Alright, this time we're going to be playing against Exosister. Definitely a bit of an uphill, more than a bit of an uphill matchup. As Exosisters, of course, love to hate on any deck that moves out of the stuff out of the graveyard, which we pretty much exclusively do during our plays. So, looking at this hand, it's not terrible. I'm going to start by setting the drop before activating Tsukinoko here. Obviously, I want to hit the Keldo, so that way I can normal summon either Ash or the Phantom Knight here. Opponent's got a Maxx though, so I get to use the Ash Blossom without having to worry about discarding it. And we do end up discarding the Keldo, which is very nice. So I get to normal summon the Phantom Knights of Stained Greaves, which, as we know, 2 level 3 monsters is a Cherubini, which is plays in this deck. Drawing the Fogblade is actually really nice, so I like having that in addition to the Droplet. So the opponent's got a Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, which is pretty annoying. You know, that's going to go ahead and get rid of my Lake 2. Or so even I thought, and I think my opponent thought as well, but even I thought, like, oh, that's the end of my Cherubini. Totally forgot Cherubini's got this other effect here, where I can send another card I control to the graveyard instead if you want to be destroyed by battle or card effect. So I'm going to do just that. I'm going to go ahead and send the Droplet I set instead, and Ghost Ogre doesn't negate, it only destroys. Not that it really matters in Cherubini's case, because it sends its costs, but I'm going to use the Graff I sent to get Seer, then go ahead and link Seer and Cherubini into the Rusty Bardish. I then get to activate Seer's effect to bring back the Cherubini, which is pretty cool. Now I'm going to use the Rusty Bardish effect, sending Ancient Cloak and setting up the Stained, or not Stained, the Shadebringing Beam here. Yeah, it's too bad I didn't have really any other plays or my normal summon here. If I had my normal summon... Oh, you know what? I'm thinking about it now. Maybe it would have been better to get an adventure set up. No, I mean, either way. I think this is still not a bad play, but yeah, because I don't have another level 3... Basically, if I had another level 3 monster I could have put on the board, I could have had a lot more plays, but I think the only thing I could have done here was go for Appaloosa. That's actually one of the reasons I wanted to go over this duel, was because I wanted to see if I had another play here. I don't really see how I did, though. I think in order to make any other kind of, like, significant play, I would have needed another level 3 monster. That would have allowed me to go into, like, I could have made Leviair and brought back the Ancient Cloak. I could have made the Dogged up potentially and just gotten like a DPE setup. I could have, well, a DPE Scythe Lock setup to be specific. I could have set up DPE, to be fair. I could have set that up here, but I decided to make Appaloosa mostly because I just still didn't know what my opponent was on. All I've seen from them is Maxx and Ghost Ogre. Now, they are rocking the Exosister sleeves, and I've said this before recently, more often than not, sleeves do actually kind of give away what your opponent's playing. Not that many people play them just to straight up trick people, although some people do that. More often than not, that's not the case. But I figured, you know, with this setup I can get an Appaloosa with 3 negates, as well as getting another Fogblade for a total of 5 monster negates. And I really figured that was going to be enough. Opponents going to reveal themselves to actually be Exosisters when they activate packs here. They then use the Martha's effect. I'm of course going to chain with Appaloosa, but my opponent's actually got another Ghost Ogre here, which is super rough. Because the Ghost Ogre destroys the Appaloosa, it doesn't actually get to reduce its attack, which means the Martha is actually going to resolve. Very, very annoying here. And then they've got the Stella as well. Stella! Okay, no, I had to. I had to. Oh my god. God help me whenever I play Exosisters. I'm just going to shout that. I won't, actually. Anyway, here I'm going to try to use the Fogblade. I thought my opponent was going to banish either my Rusty Bardish or the other Fogblade, but they ended up just banishing the Stained Greaves in order to try to resolve their Martha. I'll just use the second Fogblade on the Martha then. That's relatively fine here. So, moving forward into my turn, I do have this Rusty Bardish. I just gotta hope my opponent's last card, that back row, isn't something like an Imperm or the Exosister trap that summons 2 from deck, which it actually turns out to just exactly be, so that's really rough. That's really rough. This is just one of those games where, like, at every point, at every turn, we were, like, so close to being able to make plays, but then our opponent had just, like, one more out. But yeah, I definitely don't want to make any of my plays when my opponent's got the Exosister monsters up, otherwise they just get to make more Macaliuses and stuff. So, opponent's going to manage to top deck an Irene. I guess really any Exosister monster would have done it. They managed to top deck one and then go into another Macalius. And unfortunately, yeah, the Fogblade just isn't going to be enough here because, as you'll see when I go to attack here, or when my opponent goes to attack, when I try to use Fogblade, my opponent can just use Macalius to banish that Fogblade. It won't resolve, and then my opponent will get to attack / resolve their effect. And then, yeah, because they have 2 Macaliuses, they get to go into the, is it Magnifica? The Magnificent Lesbians? Yeah, they get to go into Magnifica before passing back to me. I do have a Foolish and maybe a chance here, but nah. I mean, Water Enchantress is a really, really good top deck, but that's definitely not going to be enough to do it here. I'm trying to think, actually, because I have, like, you know, the Rite of Armistier, and then my opponent uses the Macalius. If I had... No, I already had the Ancient Cloak in the graveyard, okay. Yeah, at that rate, my opponent just gets to turn the Magnifica back into a Macalius, which is going to be live and able to banish whatever card I use here. I don't think even with the Foolish I really had any outs at this rate. I'm still going to try, like, you know, I'll search the Torn... Well, the problem is with Torn Scales is that I can't even use it because I already tried to activate Rite of Armistier. Which is always just what it comes down to, is the big conflict in this deck. It's like Rite of Armistier versus Torn Scales. I did decide to try my luck Foolishing some of my Millers and seeing if I could hit something, like anything, but nah, didn't hit anything useful here. unfortunately. See how some of the Torn Scales, Macalius will banish it. Decided to just special the Wandering Griffin Rider before passing, and going through my opponent's turn, I'll just throw it in fast forward here, because at this rate, yeah, they can search up packs, they have Exosister plays, and I could have conceded at this point. But I kind of, at the same time, I kind of just wanted to make my opponent have it, you know? But when they had 3 monsters on the field and then the return, yeah, I was like, yeah, it's over at this point. So that was a close one. It really, like I said, came down to a couple of instances where my opponent had one more response, the second Ghost Ogre on the Appaloosa being the huge one, of course, and then top decking that Irene, just another live Exosister monster, was pretty good for them as well, but still a very good duel, and we still have one more to take a look at, so let's dive straight into this last game here. And this last game is going to be against a 60-card hero variant, actually, which is interesting. I've never really seen these, and now I've run into 2 pretty close back-to-back here. I played against one during MCS Week 6, and then now I've got this one we're up against here. We're going to be taking the second turn, tossing out a Maxx during our opponent's draw phase, just to make sure they aren't doing too much. Wow, I didn't even realize they were on a Phantom Knight package as well, or I totally forgot about that. Yeah, mid-game, I assumed my opponent was on Phantom Knights. When I was looking at their deck before the game just now, they have definitely overwhelmingly just more hero cards than anything else, so opponent was definitely cooking, which, as again, I've mentioned a lot, you know, this meta is really great for, and why I love metas with pile decks is because people can really just cook and mix and match, like, the most absolute random decks together. So here, since I opened the Water Enchantress, I'm going to start with a adventure line, which will not only ensure that I have an Omni-Negate going into my board, but will allow me to send this Ragged Gloves in my hand to the graveyard. This hand probably looked really, really dead, but it's actually not, because of, again, the adventure line into sending Ragged Gloves. Then I get to use the Ancient Cloak in order to add the Silent Boots, and then, yeah, I have the normal summonable Ancient, not Ancient, what is it, Stained Greaves, and I can special Boots, go into Cherubney, but the opponent decided not to stick around, so, yeah, this is just another nice little example of how a hand that looks really dead is actually relatively live. And it's because, you know, I said before that Torn Scales and Rite of Armistier can often conflict, and that kind of sucks. But otherwise, the Adventure and Phantom Knight packages still continue to complement one another very well. Not only, of course, using Cherubni to send Water Enchantress, but also we can use the Fateful Adventure to send some relevant Phantom Knights cards from deck, or sorry, not from deck, from hand to graveyard, as we saw here. But that's going to go ahead and do it for this time. Thank you all very much for watching. Of course, as always, as ever, let's go ahead and move now to our outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack. You'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation. You do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot, as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now. So without further ado, this is X-Lex, I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.